workshop with the New Haven Public Schools to review the 2024 through 2029 District Strategic Plan. Per order, Honorable Sal Punzo Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk located at 200 Orange Street, room 202, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651D or 203-946-8582, TDY, TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alder's YouTube page. At this time, I'd like to have my committee members introduce themselves, starting from my right.
Frank Redenti Jr., Ward 15.
Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Kiana Flores, Ward 1.
Okay, speakers, you can come to the table if you're ready. Good evening.
Good evening.
We'd like you to introduce yourself and state your address for the record, please. Let's start wherever.
Paul White, 170 Osborne Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
Dr. Madeline Negron, 70 Cabot Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Keisha Red Hannons, 155 Kern Lane, Hamden, Connecticut.
Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, 72 Sheffield Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
Dr. Michael Finley, 11 West Wall, West Haven, Connecticut, 06516.
Thank you. Okay, all yours.
All right, so good evening. Thank you for having us here today. On this occasion, we're very excited to bring before you our Path to Excellence. This is our 5-year strategic operating plan, which was recently unanimously endorsed by our Board of Education. With me, I have my team who will be leading a lot of the efforts of this plan. So I have our Chief of Staff, Dr. Finley, our Chief of Family and Community Engagement, Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Keisha Red Hannons, and our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Poland. So I am going to start by giving you to talk about a little bit about the process of how this plan came about, and then I'm going to be turning it over to key members that are leading this work to share some of the strategies that are embedded in this plan. So we can start with a little refresher around what exactly, when we talk about a strategic operating plan, what is it that we're speaking about? So a strategic operating plan, it's basically has these components that articulate why it is that we exist as a school district, where is it that we want to go in terms of our vision. It highlights our core beliefs that ground the work, and then this plan has prioritized work referenced as priorities. It's also known as focus areas, but in our case, we are using the language of priorities. You will see in here goals, metrics on how it is that all of this work will be measured. And in essence, again, this is going to speak about where is it that we want to be in the next 5 years. In the next slide, I want to share that many districts sometimes elect to bring in a contractor to come in and facilitate the work. That was not the choice that I made as a superintendent. I wanted to leverage the talent in the district to be able to do this ourselves. So the way that we approach the build out of this plan was through the structure of project leads, a project team, and a design team. So in essence, I had two individuals helping me lead this effort, which was Dr. Finley and Assistant Superintendent Red Hannons. There were other members of our staff that were supporting us in this work with some logistics and details. But more importantly, I want to call your attention to the design team. That means the individuals that were invited, not only from internal members of the district, but the community as a whole, to be part of designing this plan. So that is what is called the design team. The design team had a very clear charge in our next slide. So when I met with that, we basically said, we're gonna gather together, not just for the sake of getting together and enjoying our conversations, but it was about we're gonna gather together with purpose, meaning that we knew we were going to come together to develop a focused, coherent, actionable multi-year plan to ensure that we are going to advance student achievement across our district. We leveraged an artificial tool, which is thought exchange, to ensure that we could also expand participants in this process. We would then engage through a very clear and transparent planning process to ensure that we would have shared ownership and a vision for this plan. And then, next slide, I just want to give you insight into how much participation went into building this plan, which is something that I'm extremely proud of. So although there were 60 people in the room in terms of that design team of internal and external stakeholders, there was a lot of engagement from the community at large. So in here, you see those images in front of you. Think about if you have online tools like, let's say Facebook, even though now when you say Facebook, they will describe you as old. But let's go there, Facebook. You would put out something on Facebook, right? And usually people are either gonna like something or comment on something, but basically it's a way to expand what you're putting out there. This is similar to what we were able to do with Thought Exchange. So thoughts went out, meaning I would put out a question or information, and then participants could go in with ease in any language that they chose to be able to speak about that idea or that comment or that thought. So those are the things that you're seeing there in terms of how many people participated. You can see the question that went out. So let me pick on that question about what are the opportunities that exist for improvement in the New Haven Public Schools. You see that we had about 1,000 people participating in that question and responding to that question. You see 30,000 people engaging, right, in rating different comments that were coming in. So again, all of this to show you that all those 60 people were in the room, or reach expanded up to 1,000 plus. And in this case, right, you see the extent of the reach. In the next slide, I want to also highlight that we were very productive in terms of getting this project launched and completed. So we began the process in January, knowing that we were going to have something to deliver to our board at the end of May, so that we could launch it with our administrators in June. And I am happy to report that all of that has happened. In the next slide, this just kind of tells you how it is that we engage in this process, so I will not bore you with those details. You can read those later. But in the next slide, I do want to hone in where it is that we landed in terms of we now have a very clear mission and a vision for what it is that we are attempting to do with this plan. So in here you see, and it is intentional that we are starting with the phrase in partnership with families and community. You heard me when I first arrived into the district, I was speaking about together. Doing this work together, meaning that we could not do it alone. So we are lifting that this work is going to be done in partnership with our families and our communities. And that what we are aiming to do is to empower every student to thrive. It can't be about some, it has to be about all, because they're all of our students. So our mission is to ensure that, again, that we are empowering every child so that they can thrive in environments. We want our environments to be safe, to be inclusive, and to be supportive, because we know we're a district that opens doors to everybody, right? Culturally and linguistically. And that we want to embrace, again, embrace and cultivate the vibrancy that comes in terms of our cultural diversity. And that together we are aiming to nurture critical thinkers that are going to be lifelong learners who are prepared for success. Meaning, we want them when they leave us, whether they're going to go straight into work, go straight into a 2-year program, or go straight into college. We want students to be prepared for success. So our vision, in a nutshell, is that we want to be a district of excellence that not only inspires but empowers and equips every student to flourish in and contribute to a changing world. I do want to hone in on a district of excellence. And a district of excellence means the way that we carry out our work, the way that we work together, the high caliber of expectation that we set for our own work, not just for our students. Also, the way that we carry out our interactions, meaning in terms of adults, where it's healthy to disagree, but there's a way in which we should be disagreeing, because at the end of the day, we are the models for the students. So that's why I'm highlighting and lifting that we want to be a district of excellence in everything that we do. In the next slide, you now have our core values. Again, with the engagement that we do with community. So in here, you have our belief statements. So everything that we do from now on needs to be filtered through these core values. One of those be equitable opportunities, because we know everybody needs to have opportunity. Cannot just be some in those opportunities, because we know they are essential for college, career, and life. We believe in setting high expectations, because we know by setting high expectations, that means we are respecting the natural gifts and talents that our students bring, but also that our staff brings. So it is the high expectations for all. Believing in collaboration and partnership, because we know that is the only way that we're going to be able to enhance the learning and the achievement, and that we are making a commitment to continuous improvement. Everyone needs to have the mindset that there's always something to learn, and that there's always a way that we can get better, so that we can achieve excellence, and that we are going to be holding systemic accountability. Because it is about the system, what we are doing as an entire district, not individual pockets. Because we believe that if we have the systemic accountability, that is what we're going to be able to create the conditions, not only for our students, for our staff, for our families to thrive within the system. In the next slide, you will see there are very clear goals as to where it is that we want to be in the next 5 years. So by 2029, we have done an analysis of where we are. We have looked back at longitudinal data so that we can set goals that are smart, meaning that they are very realistic. Not only realistic, but that they can be specific, that they can be measurable, and that they can be attainable. So here you will see we are going to be honing in on kindergarten, because we know it is the foundation to everything else. So there are targets that we are setting for what we want every child to be at the end of kindergarten. We're going to look specifically at the following developmental domains: language, literacy, and numeracy. And our goal is to meet or exceed an 80% as it relates to those domains, again, at the end of kindergarten. We're also going to be looking at the percentage of growth target achieved. And I need to take a minute to explain that. We are not talking about proficiency. What we are talking about is average percentage growth target achieved, because we believe that's more meaningful more accurate. It means that in the assessments that we have today, even assessments, high-stake assessments that come from the state, for every kid, it tells you how much each child, depending on where they are, should grow within a year. Every child has a target of how much they should grow in a year. That is what we're going after. We want to make sure that we're individualizing and ensuring that every child is growing. So we are going, in terms of ELA, we want to make sure that the average percent of that growth that is attained will be 70.1 or higher. In terms of math, that would be 71% or higher. In terms of our multilingual learners, the specific assessment that they have to take on an annual basis, which is the last links, we want to hone in inside of that assessment literacy and also oral, right? Their ability to begin to speak the English language. We have set a target of that around 85%. We're going to continue to work on our chronic absenteeism because if kids are not in schools, they can't learn. So we're aiming to decrease chronic absenteeism to 20% by the time we get to 2029, because we know how hard it is even to decrease it by 0.5%. We're also honing in on our incoming freshmen, because we know ninth grade is a predictor, a key predictor of how students are going to be able to not only graduate, but to be able to do later after they graduate. So their targets center around our ninth graders. So for example, here you see on track for cohort graduation, meaning we're hoping that they can graduate within 4 years. We're setting that at 94%. And also, meaning on track, let me back up. Ninth grade, there's a definition by the state that says a student should have X number of credits in core classes by the end of freshman year. So we're going to look at that very closely because we want in 5 years to have at least 94% of our freshmen on track. We're also going to look at our number of students who graduate within 4 years. That is the cohort graduation rate. And we're also going to be looking at the work that we're doing around college preparedness and career. So that is why we're honing in on the percentage of students taking at least 2 dual credit courses while in high school. Because we know, right, if they're taking dual credit, it means that while they're in high school, they're earning college credit. That's money that's being saved for our families and also giving our students a jump start when they get to college. And also looking at sense of belonging, because we want kids in schools where they feel like they belong. So we're going to be going hard in terms of that strategy. We want that percentage to increase to 85%. Again, all of these are the targets for 2029. There's a link there, which you have in your electronic copy. If you click on it, it's able to give you a lot of the backup so that you can better understand what these things mean. And you can look back because we've also broke it down. You see where we want to be in 5 years, but it breaks it down. Where do we want to be at the end of year 1, at the end of year 2, at the end of year 3? And it also explains a lot of the nuances that come from the state in terms, for example, of the average target achieved. So all of that is inserted in that link that you have there.
Please excuse me, I'd like to welcome all parts.
Thank you.
As I mentioned at the beginning, the strategic operating plan encompasses priorities, meaning what should our work be? Where should our focus be? Where should our energy be to be able to advance student achievement in the district? Based on all of the stakeholder input and the work that we did, we landed on these 4 priorities. So the first priority is teaching and learning, followed by family and community partnerships, followed by culture and climate, and last but not least, operational efficiencies. And what we are going to do now, you get to hear from somebody else. And each of my teammates, they're going to be sharing with you what it is, what are the strategies that we have identified for the work that we're going to be investing our energy and our resources in for the next 5 years. And when you hear the person speaking, that's going to be the person that basically is tasked to be what I'm calling the priority lead behind this work. Because with this work, there's also an entire project management plan that's behind it that I have already shared with all of the administrators in the system. And we even shared it as we were building it because I told people drafting a plan, and you know this because you've been a building leader, right? Sometimes great plans are built and they're beautiful, they're colorful, they're very aspirational. And at the end of the day, it's like they go into a file, they go somewhere, they collect dust, and nobody can even talk about it. What I'm speaking about is that there are structures that have been laid out in the system now by which we're going to be operating moving forward. For example, the type of meetings, data dives that are going to happen in the district periodically around these strategies and how we're doing. You will see that my reporting to the Board of Education is all going to be centered around these priorities. When you invite me to these meetings, you're going to see that I'm going to be very intentional about, I want to talk about my priorities, because these are the things that we have said as a community, that is what we need to do to advance student achievement. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our lead in teaching and learning, Assistant Superintendent Rick Hammond.
Just excuse me, do any committee members have any questions for Dr. Negron on her presentation?
Thank you, Chair Punzo. Thank you for the presentation. It was very well thought out. The only question I had was on the major goals, just the percentages. I know you said that the link has like the actual breakdown, but I was just wondering what, I guess, metrics were used to achieve these like percentage goals, whether it was like, oh, a certain number of increase like within each year. So yeah, any parameters that went into creating this like certain metric.
So that's a great question. As it relates to things like literacy and math, we also have to take a look at the SR targets. Those are the targets that are set out by the state that speak about where is it that everybody has to be within year 2030. So we took that into consideration. We also took a look at where have we been in terms of a district dating back to like pre-pandemic years. We took a look to see on average, like what are the gains that happen and that are possible. And then we stretch that, right? Because we want to be better than what we've been. But at the same time, I think often what happens when these goals are set, I've seen goals where because people want to hit the marker, the end marker, the analysis doesn't get done around what's possible. So off the gate, when you put out your plan, you have already demoralized people. And they don't believe that it's even possible because your goals are then not attainable. So that is why we took a lot of energy to really talk about that's the end game, this is where we are, this is where we've been, what makes sense, and then also in the information that we have from those state assessments to be able to make those incremental aspirations for the yearly targets.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Punzo.
You're very welcome. I have a question. What part could you explain AI? Why did you use AI? What did that do differently than previous plans? What was the advantage of using AI?
The advantage of using AI is that we all know that we live very busy lives. We all do, right? And often, I'll give you the example of my pet peeve when people describe what does parent engagement mean. And often people describe parent engagement like, okay, that parent comes to the school when we do our PTO meetings or whatever. And my argument is, that is not parent engagement. That is just people that are able to come because their livelihood allows for them to not be at work, and be able to go into a school. I wanted to bring in as many voices into this process that didn't require people to say, yeah, I'm gonna participate, or I got invited. You didn't get invited to come to the table, but you were invited to come to the table via the artificial intelligence, because every key question that was being put out to that design team to wrestle with the ideas and the concepts were the same thoughts that you saw in that sheet that went out via that thought exchange. And also, how often is it that we create opportunities for people to engage, but we forget and we don't create the access that allow people to engage. So what this particular tool allowed people to do is that it didn't matter whether you spoke English or not. Through this tool, you could access the question in whatever your language was, and you could respond to the question in whatever your language is. So that was the beauty of relying on a tool of artificial intelligence. The other benefit of that tool was that once all of that information came in, the tool does an analysis. So imagine the hours that it would have taken us to read through everything and look at all the patterns and trends. The tool, because of the algorithm that's built in, pulls out your patterns and trends. So then it was our job to then take that analysis, and make meaning out of it to continue to inform the work that was happening in the design team.
So you gave people an opportunity.
There was plenty of opportunity,
That's good.
and we were so pleased with how many folks were able to engage in this process.
After the analysis, did you find that at the end, did you find that it was similar to that there were problems prior to this analysis? I mean, were they similar, the problems that people expressed that we already knew about?
I would say, yes, I would say that it was interesting when we said, what are the strengths?
Yeah.
And you saw the number of participants, right? And then you said, what are the opportunities? That number exponentially increased, right?
Right.
But I think a lot of the areas that folks spoke about were areas that we're aware of. What was advantageous was that in the comments that they were offering, they were also giving ideas on what things we could do, right, to tackle that challenge. So I think that was one of the beauties of gathering the information.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Delgado? Okay, thank you very much.
So, good evening once again. So one of our priority areas is teaching and learning, no surprise there. And what you'll notice just as we go through our strategic operating plan for each priority area, we have a theory of action. And the theory of action is simply an if-then statement. If we do this, if we put this input in, that we should have a certain output. And so for teaching and learning, we focus on personalized learning experiences. If we tailor them to meet the individual needs of students, then while supporting staff, focusing on continuous improvement, then we will positively impact student outcomes. And for us, as you look at the strategies, and just kind of to orient you to the slide, the left side are strategies. So we have three overarching strategies for teaching and learning. One, a focus on continuous improvement. Two, to develop and create multi-tier systems of supports, frameworks for academics as well as behavior, and to empower every student to reach their full potential through the personalized learning experiences. What you will see on the right side are the work streams, are the action items that we plan to take as we move forward. So we want to, for example, if I look at, I'll go with empowering every student, the third strategy. If you look at it, what we plan to do is develop and implement a portrait of a graduate in HPS. And that portrait of a graduate will talk about the skills and attributes that we believe our students should have as they leave NHPS. You'll also see the second bullet, and I won't go through all of them, but talks about the expansion of career-connected pathways. If you think about a few weeks ago, we came before the Board of Alders around the community development with the bioscience pathway. And that's part of that expansion of career-connected pathways. And so on the right side, you see our strategies and what we plan to put in place in order to achieve those personalized learning experiences for our students. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Joseph Lumpkin.
Thank you. And here, I feel very privileged and even humbled to talk about family and community engagement, because we know that they are at the center of everything that we do. And I just feel, this is a great opportunity to remind our community that we are deep into engaging with our families. And as we switch over to the next page, on page 15, as Assistant Superintendent Red-Hands pointed out, on the left side, you will see the huge strategy, and on the right side, the components of that. Personalized and strengthening engagement with families is huge. You heard Dr. Negrón say it's not just about looking at involving families in events, but figuring out the needs, the approaches, the supports that families need so that we can connect with them in meaningful ways. And here I often like to raise up that family who might not show up at the school, but you see that family in their child, that they get that kid there every day. Thousands and thousands of our families figure out how to make that happen. And when you really think about the fact that 75% or more of our families can't afford a lunch, need a free and reduced lunch, and yet the vast majority of them figure out how to get up and get their kids to school every day. So we want to make sure that we personalize and engage and connect with our families in a way where they know what's happening. They are, we have mutually agreed upon connections. We are pushing in the idea of home visiting, not just from the perspective of the old truancy, go knock on the door, but from the idea that when we connect with you in a place where you are comfortable, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or the local library or in your home if you invite us in, we learn more about who you are and what your family needs. And that strength-based, that resilience-based, that aspiration-based approach, we believe, will strengthen families' commitment, and I'm saying strengthen because we know it's there, but get them more deeply connected to what we are doing within the schools. The two-way communication component is critical so that as Dr. Negrón explained with AI, we are getting that feedback, we are making that connection. We are not, again, just giving and telling. We are hearing, we are listening, we are responding, we are understanding what's happening within our communities. Enhancing families' capacity to support children. This is a belief that that's what families want to do. They want to support and help their children to achieve the learning outcomes. But we have to be intentional about informing them about what's happening and even pushing them and connecting with them as appropriate. I would say we are running a summer bridge program for our incoming ninth graders. And we are saying to families, we want your students to be a part of that because it's a good thing for school, for our eighth graders, rising eighth graders to connect with schools before school starts. And sometimes we have to say to families that I know they want to work, but have them take that 1 or 2 weeks to connect with us, and we explain why it matters to our students. And the community partnerships are an essential part of our work. We're working with hundreds, I would say dozens, I say hundreds, sometimes it feels like hundreds, dozens of community partners that help us to deliver what is needed for us to connect with families, use the resources within the neighborhoods, oftentimes mapping, the grocery store around the corner, the restaurant around the corner, the tire shop around the corner. when we are intentional about saying that our community partners will make a difference in the lives of our students within schools, that's what we mean, making sure that we are mapping the resources that are available to us. And I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Paul White, on the culture and climate.
Good evening. Culture and climate, of course, binds everything together that we're doing because we need to be able to work with the student, the adults, all of those relationships. So the key to this is looking at how we empower and engage our students, but also focusing on how we as the adults in the system do this work and communicate and collaborate so that we can support students. So as we move into the pieces of this, of course, increasing student engagement and empowerment, lots of pieces that go into that. It sounds simple, but obviously it's a lot has to go into that because the culture in our buildings is what makes them work. That's how students learn. If we're able to spend time in class without distractions, and students have a sense of belonging, feel that they're part of the community, define what the community of our building is. Walter Flores, I believe you went to co-op. There's a culture within co-op. Those are the things that have to be built and maintained, and so that students know what their expectations are and are able to thrive in that environment. So we're going to do that sort of work. We're going to have erase student voice and choice in building out that, defining their culture so that we get to a point where one a new student comes in, they're able to integrate into Fairhaven because their students will be able to help them build that possibility and understand what the school is like and how they contribute to that community. Then as we move to the next phase, it's how we as the adults work in the system. So one, how we work together, building all respectful language to each other, how we engage and work with our families, how we talk to one another, how we build upon that and work together and decide this is respectful communication, this is respectful how we get to the solve our problems, disagree, but get to where we need to be so that we can do the work. And working with our support staff and professional learning to build all of this, because if we're going to ask staff to do it, we have to make sure we train them. So it's the support to rise them up to the level that we all want to be able to do this work. So that's another big component of the communication and collaboration. And then, of course, this is one of the areas that intersect with family and community is the attendance. We need our kids in the seats. We need to work through all the issues that prevent a student from coming to school, which of course relates back to the first piece of engagement. I particularly work mostly with the high schools. We know high school students vote with their feet. So if it's not interesting, not engagement, they're going to step away. So those are the things that link back together with the attendance, the work that's been done with Chief Gemma Lumpkin, and we're going to continue building on that and come up with new ways to help bring that chronic absenteeism number down. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Dr. Kennedy.
All right, good evening. Operational efficiencies. If we create new or improve current structures and systems through effective data system use, intentional resource identification and advocacy, found an investment in capital enhancement and sustainability planning, then New Haven public schools will operate more efficiently. So looking at our high-level strategies on the left-hand side of the page, the first one for operational efficiencies speaks to utilizing data, systems, and processes to foster transparency, support two-way communication, and streamline tasks and systems. This is extremely important because we need to create a data system map so we know exactly what we have in our district and what we need to keep or what we may need to invest in. In addition to that, create a professional development plan so that our district is aware of how to utilize the school, the tools to impact our plan for continuous improvement. In addition to that, you know, things drop when progress monitoring is not there, and then drop when implementation time comes. So ensuring that we have a very tight plan around progress monitoring as it relates to after we have identified what our data systems we want to keep, use, and improve. After we provide the professional development, when it's time to implement, we want to make sure we have strong progress monitoring tools in place to ensure implementation. And the last piece of that first part is you hear communication a lot because it's extremely important. Our community partners, our families, our students, all stakeholders are extremely important to move in a positive direction together collaboratively. The second strategy speaks to advocate for and align resources to achieve equity across schools and programs. First and foremost, making sure we're utilizing the resources that we do have in the best way possible. We may not have a lot, but it's important that we're responsible with what we have and how we use it. In addition to that, you see the word advocate. We have to advocate at the state level, at the city level. That's a part of our job. Doesn't even always get a yes, but if we don't come to the table for our kids and our families and our community stakeholders around what we need, then you know we're not doing our job. So the word advocate is there. Is there for a reason. In addition to that, you'll see the staffing guidelines. That's a plan that was created, led by Ms. Keisha Hammonds, where we identified what it would look like for us to have everything we need to move our school district. We'll continue to move forward to try to get to those numbers, but that's within the context of the budget that we received. Move to the next one. The next strategy, you'll see recruit, retain, and develop talent for sustained engagement and impact. We need our teachers, we need our paraprofessionals, our support staff, cafeteria workers, all make systems go, right? We want to make sure that we first onboard them in a proper way, we develop them, and we retain them, and build good relationships with them, because relationships matter. In addition to that, we want to implement our educator diversity plan that was approved this year. So we'll be implementing that. And in addition to that, we want to ensure that everybody in our district is learning as a learning system. Our last strategy that you see there, infrastructure enhancement and sustainability planning. Within this particular strategy, action items, building cleanliness, we want to definitely improve there. Put a quality control program in place, improve that program so that we can improve in that area. Conduct the facilities conditions assessment, which will inform a 10-year capital plan, which you see next. That's one of the bullets in the action items. And the last piece there is management of our district real estate. That part is informed by the data that we get from facilities assessment and feedback from the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then last, I just wanted to highlight so you can see the scope of the different partners that were part of the build out of this plan. So it gives you a little idea of the different individuals in the organizations that they represent. So you will see that again, a nice blend of internal stakeholders, but also our external stakeholders. And so give you some pictures of all the work that happened. Nothing like images, right, to highlight the work. So you see a little gallery here. And with that, I guess we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for the speakers? Ben?
Thank you. First, let me say, I'm a fan of all of you. Since Dr. Brown, since you gotten here, I've witnessed the growth already, but from what I hear from people, everybody is starting to see that progress is on the horizon and everybody's very excited. So I commend you for that. Because there were people that were nervous, change is not easy, and everybody, I work for the Board of Ed, we hear the rumblings, we got a new superintendent, a couple of years after having a new superintendent after losing this, it's like, it's frustrating, but, as I said, when you first came here, I was super excited to have you as my son's school principal. I'm even more excited to have you as my superintendent. This plan is amazing. How I feel about Gemma. I don't want to speak too much about my supervisor. I do have some questions. And I love the 8th to 9th grade transition. As you know, when I worked over across on the youth staff program, the last data I had us losing 60% of our young men of color and about 40% of our young women after freshman year. So that's a really, I'm really happy to hear that we're going to start focusing on that. And the systemic accountability, as you know, we've spoken about things that we can do as a district to help improve attendance and behavior. So it makes me happy. So, Dr. Finley, the facilities assessments, who are those going to be done by? Is that going to be done by this team, or will that be done by the facilities crew that currently exists?
No, that will have to go out.
That'll be private.
Yeah, have to go out.
All right. In any conversations, have we ever thought about going back and re-examining the decision to go private with our custodians?
So I would say the reality is what we have now, right? We have a contract. It's been like that for many years. I think there'll be an opportunity to explore all of those things. As the urgency right now as it relates to this particular strategy is about the fact that we know we've lost enrollment. We know that it's a struggle to get the financial resources that we need because it's putting a strain on the city. We know that. And by the way, I appreciate all the support, the advocacy. We finally have assigned an approved budget, but we know even this coming year is going to be hard, even with all the right sizing that we have done. I know that I have to find a path forward on how do we become financially sustainable in the future. With that, it means that we know where our buildings are. We know we're not going to be able to continue to fund 41 facilities. So this work doesn't particularly speak about who's doing that. What it does speak about is that we have to have a thorough assessment, for example, of our mechanical systems in all of our buildings, to then have that data, along with the data that we already have from the previous review, take a look at our enrollment, and then engage in conversations with the data with our communities to say, folks, we need a plan. I want a plan, 10-year plan that says, we know that based on where we are, it makes no sense to invest money in a building that mechanical systems that are no longer going to be operational in years to come. So we're going to have to make those decisions to say that one needs to close. That is what we're talking about in terms of the 10-year. Most immediate is going to be conversations around, we know we've had private contractors, right, helping us in the management of our facilities. What I would say is that, that we have to take a close look and look, where do the opportunities exist? Full transparency, I know that there's interest out there in folks saying, let's do it on our own. I want to say, maybe, but I'm one that I want my data to inform my decisions. I can tell you right now, even if we wanted to do that in the next 6 months, I'll be the one to do it. We don't have the capacity to do that. Like, if you think we're in a tough shape right now, imagine if you were to say, oh yeah, let's take this on ourselves and let's let the contractors go. It's not that simple, right? We need to be able to organize for that. What I'm saying is, we do want to have the data to inform, should that be something that we strive to in the near future. So, long-winded answer, but I want to give you all the thinking that is going into, one, the consolidation, that we know we're going to have. You did ask me this question before, and I said, we are going to go there. That is why now we need the analysis so that we can begin to engage with community and talk about what's this plan, what does it look like?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, my concern has always been since the decision was made, there were talks about savings. And, from what I hear, it doesn't seem, I'd love to see the numbers of where we're at as far as what we were spending when we were controlling our own staff as opposed to what we're spending now. The one difference I see is stuff was getting fixed to a degree then, and we're having issues getting things, we have old stock. We have a lot of old historic buildings, a lot of roof issues. I understand that. I just, believe in managing our own people.
And I appreciate that. And again, what I'm saying is with the data that we will collect, it will inform, right?
Perfect.
If the idea was that this is the best way to get a savings, is it true today that indeed that model gives us savings? Or are there opportunities in like a hybrid model? But we need data.
Absolutely.
We need multiple sources of data before we go on making decisions that, right, they feel right. They feel right, absolutely feel right. But I think my job is to do my due diligence. I think that's what I'm being paid for, to ensure, right, that we are making very thoughtful decisions that speak about not the now, the immediate, but being poised for the future.
So if I
Yeah,
may,
absolutely.
thank you.
Yes.
So I think this would go to you, Dr. White.
Yes.
How's the district planning to address seriously disruptive behaviors going forward?
Well, one is looking at our code of conduct and also what we have with restorative, and understand, and you already understand, restorative does not mean not punishing, but we are going to look at destructive behaviors, looking at how we respond to those and what other services have to be put around the students that do this so that we don't have the repeats. So it's not just we're going to throw them out because we can't, we know the rule, but we want to really be a restorative district. That's the foundation of what we are and how we do that and reduce the harm, because the key part of restorative is the reduction of the harm and restoring the harm that was done. And as we work on that, that's what we want to get to.
So as somebody who works, with the goal of breaking the school to prison pipeline, I mean, I don't believe in punishment either. But if anybody knows me, if I walk through the hallways of my school, my kids park like the Red Sea, and it's not because they're scared of me; they're afraid to disappoint me. It's just a tough love, and I think you said that, and I wrote it down. Relationships matter, and I love the fact that we're going into cultural competency training with our staff, because there is that error, there is that piece where some people don't come from where our kids come from, and it's not intentional, but they miss that relationship building. So I appreciate that.
And also one of the points in it was specifically about building relationships between the adults and students, also because the relationship is where it goes. When I was a principal, I had kids who had gone through a wall for me. If I asked them to, same way you have kids, and that's because of the relationship. That's not out of a position.
Yeah.
So that's the work that has to be done across all of our schools.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm all set. Thank you.
If I may ask,
Sure.
Chair Ponzo, it's about lifting the alignment, right? Because we know now we have pockets, right, where we see if I enter this building, this is how issues are addressed. But if I enter this building, issues are addressed very differently. So what we're trying to do is get everybody back and grounded, right? What does it mean, right, in terms when we say restorative? What does it mean? And that's why in the family and community priority, you see a lot of the work around those welcoming environments. We all know that if you start with a welcoming environment where kids know, listen, I belong there, they want me here. That's the beginning. Followed by setting very clear expectations, right? And also saying, we know we're not perfect, and that when mistakes are made, that we talk about the mistakes, that we receive consequences. And we know, right, consequences could be positive consequences, they could be negative consequences. They're just meant, right, to help you continue to learn about your mistakes. But that also means, what do the interactions look like? The way that I may speak to a child maybe very different than the way somebody else may speak to a child. And that's where you talk about, right, the whole cultural competence. So what we're talking about, even though, and you heard Dr. White say, right, it sounds simple, this strategy, when you read it, it's not that simple. And I told Dr. White, Dr. White, you have like the biggest bucket right now in this plan in lifting, because there's so much in there that we know that then it's going to intersect with family and community, and also going back to the teaching and learning, right? Like, do I see myself in the curriculum that you're teaching me, right? Do you believe in me that I can actually be someone in the future? Or are you telling me you have no business being in this calculus class because you're not going nowhere? And listen, I know what that feels like. So that's what this plan aims to do. Like, how do we bring all these pieces? That again, it's not rocket science. We all know it's not rocket science. It's how do we get every member of this organization to, right, put the effort so that we collectively can get here. And what we're saying is, listen, it's being stamped by a community. This isn't just internal, stamped by a community. And that is why there's a whole monitoring process that will come with this plan.
Well said. And if I could just say one thing before I go, you know, one of the things I live by is the kids will never care about what you know until they know you care.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? I just have, I don't know if they're questions or comments, but you
Do we have any questions? They were so thorough.
you know how I feel about where the onus of responsibility is. It's on that person in charge of that building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the most important thing. And Dr. White, you do have the biggest and toughest bucket. Because without that bucket, there's no teaching and learning. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. You know, I look at a building principal as you know, when I was a building principal, I didn't consider myself a great principal. I never even said that. I just hardworking. I like to work hard every day, try and make a difference. But you know, I look at a person in charge of a building as a building manager or an instructional leader. You know, you're both. I was stronger in building management, but I had great people as instructional leaders that took. I mean, I could go in and teach a class and stuff like that, but my strength was a building manager. And I think the key is that individual who's in charge of a building has to set that climate and tone. No one else. Now, I know years ago, do you guys have orientation anymore? You know, where you do have the orientations. I know we used to have 7, 8, 10, 12 of them. You know, it used to be, and I think they were important because that was the opportunity to lay out the groundwork. Say, this is our school, this is what we do, this is our discipline policy, because I think you need one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying beat kids over the head, I'm not saying that. But you want kids to respect, when they walk through those doors, to respect the 6 hours and 15 minutes a day. They can give us that. There's no one who can't give us that. And I think that's the key to get all of this work done, is that building principle. That's the one. And also, I know, Keisha, you're in charge of monitoring this plan over the schools, and that's a tough one. No, it's a tough one because, you know, everyone is different, and everybody, you know, looks at things differently. No one's the same. They have their own way of dealing with stuff. And I always say that you can have all the new programs you want, but everybody's going to revert back to their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. You could tweak their comfort zone, but they're going to revert back to it because they're comfortable doing it. So, but I do commend you on I think it's a great plan. You know, how you roll out this plan, you know, from this level here to the next level, the principals, and to the teachers, that person that's in charge of the building has to sell it. You know, and the other thing I used to do, not because I did it, and Frank's aware of it, is that I used to hold grade level meetings every week. I used to call all of my 8th graders. I had 825 kids. I used to call them all in the auditorium. teachers included. All right, here's what we did. This month here, we did pretty good. Marks went up, grades went up, but these are the things we need to work on. I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with that, but I am really happy with this. So we need to work together to do that. And I did that constantly for 18 years, every single grade level. Every single grade level at Franklin.
East Rock was a lot tougher school back then.
But, and again, I'm not saying because I did it, it works. I was comfortable doing that. I felt it meant something to me. And the thing that the kids used to talk to the teachers, talk to me, and that's what you want. You want kids to say, hey, Mr. Punzo, I'm having a problem.
Mhm.
Or, Mr. Punzo, watch out for this. Oh, Mr. Punzo, or not only me, but
Yes.
that's what you want. You have to build a community. You have to build that community. But I commend you all. I think it's going to be a great plan. I think, and I don't know much about AI, but.
I thought you were talking about Allen Iverson.
But I think that was a way to reach people and give them an opportunity, because otherwise you would have only reached the people that wanted to say something.
Right.
Now they're more comfortable talking on a telephone or sharing that and having the opportunity to do that without coming to a school or without going to a meeting. So I commend you all and I thank you all. And any questions?
I just never felt the district in better hands.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it very much.
We're excited about
No,
this
we are
plan.
too. Yeah, we are too.
And we're with you for whatever you need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Whatever I can do. And is it okay if I visit schools? Just come around?
Sure.
Just don't come bother me if you're leaving, all right?
But anyway, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yep. Okay.
No, because that's something a lot of the old middle school principals did, was calling all the middle school kids into the auditorium or the cafeteria. Maybe like at the beginning of the end of the week, Joe Montagna did it.
Okay, the last item has been heard. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? For the last time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Do I have a motion to close the public portion of this meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Guys, thank you so
That
much.
was smooth down the end.
I
We're a good team here. I like it. Nice job, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
guys.
you. Sorry, I apologize.
Hey, guys, let me tell you where.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, are we streaming these?
Yeah, we are.
All right.
I'm gonna get out of this thing. If I turn it off, will it just turn off? Like.
Mr. Lucas? Mr. Lucas, are we still on?
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah, it's recording. Sure.
Goodbye, everyone.
The one viewer.
One viewer.
Yeah, it's like. It's taking up the full screen, but I don't know how to get it to minimize. Oh,
I need these.
oh, you almost got it. That was-
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's put that session.
Are we off?